Shalom, family. Good to see you all here. Hope you're doing well. Oh boy, it's not looking good for Tim Walz. People are calling for his resignation, not just the citizens, but politicians too. They said he saw all of this stuff with the Somalian scamming going down. He did nothing to stop it. He just sat right there and kept forking out the money for these scams they were committing. And man, it is getting deep. I got another one that I'm going to show you a little later of this person is going face to face with them from one daycare center to the next, because these buildings are empty, but they told the government they had like 90 children at this location, 70 at this, and they had no children at all. Just lied about everything. And some of these Somalians are so arrogant. They seriously believe, after all the scamming and everything is out in the open about what they're doing, that we should be on their side. No, we ain't going to be on no side of no damn scammers. Okay. It's just not going to happen. And it just goes to show you, y'all, they done came here perpetrating the biggest fraud ever. And I really think this is probably by far the biggest scam ever committed in American history. It's pushing $9 billion, y'all. How the hell did you let this small group of people get away with stealing $9 billion of government money? There's a lot of people that need to be jailed behind this. It's not just the Somalians, but these people that sat there and forked out all this money, their asses need to go to jail. It's a lot of people that need to go to jail. So anyway, I'm going to show you what, folks are talking about and what's on the news. And Kamala, this was your VP pick. And look at what is happening. And to be honest with you, y'all, I don't think his political career is going to survive this. I don't think it will. I think he's going to, just through pressure, he's going to have to resign, y'all. How do you keep your job as governor and you let things get this far out of control? And you didn't put your foot down and stop all this money from going out to these Somalians. Well, I tell you what, y'all, it's going to be interesting to see how this thing unfolds for real. So let me go ahead and share my screen so we can get started. Please give me a 1 if you can see my screen. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right.
There's absolutely nothing more to talk about. I'm so damn sick of the lip service. I'm getting real sick and tired of the DOJ as well. If they are not talking about indictments, impeachments, and or people being removed from their seats and this country, I don't want to hear anything. Will we see some accountability? Only reasonable thing Tim Walz can say at this time is I resign. Be sure to take your lieutenant governor with you. You know, the one walking around doing interviews in hijabs and professing her 30-year friendships with her Somali friends. Mayor Jacob Frey, he needs to go too. He's better than the alternative. However, can't be trusted. And those judges have got to go. Judge Sarah West, how do you get to an acquittal after a jury finds the man guilty? How does this happen? You got to go. Right along with your friends, Amber Brennan and Hillary Calliguri. You guys let these fraudsters off the hook. Oh, and last but not least is Ilhan Omar. Nothing more to say. We all know you got to go. Minnesota is an absolute mess. And the fraud happening would not exist if leadership was not complacent. They cannot say they didn't know.
First of all, thank you, Nick Shirley, for everything you're doing out there. Let's talk about Tim Walz, the fraud father of Minnesota, and the questions he still refuses to answer. Under his watch, a multi-billion-dollar fraud scandal exploded in Minnesota. Not millions, not a mistake, multiple billions of taxpayer dollars. And according to documented reports, it wasn't just ignored. Whistleblowers sounded the alarm. State employees raised concern. Investigators warned something was very wrong. And instead of being protected, they were allegedly retaliated against. And if that's true, and the public record strongly suggests it is, that is not leadership. That is abuse of power. So let's ask the questions Minnesotans deserve answers to. Was this fraud ignored to protect political identity? Was silence chosen to avoid backlash? Or was there something bigger coming later? Because here's the line that cannot be crossed. If a governor knows about fraud and does nothing, that's failure. If a governor retaliates against those reporting it, that's corruption. And if these allegations are proven true, and I'm sure they will be, he should not still be in office. He should have already resigned, and he should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. We always hear one rule in corruption cases: follow the money. So let's follow it. Every grant, every nonprofit, every approval, every signature. This isn't about race. This isn't about politics. This is about justice. And we will not stop asking questions until accountability finally comes to pass. Whistleblowers don't destroy governments. Corruption does.
The enemy is within the gate. Not only is the enemy inside of the gate, we're paying them to stay here. We're giving them money so they can send to the enemy back in Somalia. Thanks for tuning in. What you've seen over the last couple of days is massive fraud exposed on the backs of daycare centers in Minneapolis and in Minnesota, the home of Ilhan Omar, the home of Tim Walz, and many others. And what has happened is there's an independent journalist by the name of Nick Shirley. He's 23 years old. And I don't even think he would have been allowed to vote in the 2020 election. Doesn't matter. But he's a guy with a hoodie and a microphone, a little DJI pocket mic, probably cost $100, and he's got a buddy with a cell phone. Now, he might be being funded by someone else, but I already signed up to subscribe to him to give him some money as well for his own personal security. But he has just exposed hundreds of millions of dollars of fraud that these guys chose not to. The AP, the PBS, Fox, NPR, Wall Street Journal, CNN, WAPO, Reuters, none of them have chosen to do a little thing. Nothing. And it's really interesting that an independent journalist, like I said, wearing a hoodie, an independent journalist, 23 years old, wearing a hoodie, is the one that had to do their job. Because here's the funny part. Most of these organizations are taking money from you indirectly because of your cable bill. And you have allowed these guys in your homes for years, either against your will or maybe you invited them in because you put them on your TV. You trusted them. I'm going to ask a question right now. Who do you trust more? The government? The news media? Law enforcement? Your elected officials locally? Your mayor? Your chief of police? Your sheriffs? Do you trust the Justice Department? Do you trust judges? Do you trust prosecutors? Do you trust the Attorney General or even the FBI? Because right now, out of all those that I just labeled, I trust the guy right here at the bottom. I trust Nick Shirley more than all of them. I trust independent journalism more than all of them. And this has went to the top. Elon Musk is now calling for the prosecution of Tim Walz over this childcare fraud. And I urge you to go and watch this. It's about a 40-minute expose documentary of Nick Shirley. Here's a young man right here. He's 23 years old. It says right here, done more than these billion-dollar networks. This is him with a hoodie. He's got the Fetterman uniform on. And now Elon Musk is calling for Tim Walz to be prosecuted. You know,
well, bet you haven't heard anything about this. Amid the massive Somalian money laundering fraud scandal that is currently taking place in Minnesota, Governor Tim Walz just unveiled a new plan to allow for migrants to take up to 20 weeks of paid time off for family bonding.
Insurance program for you that allows you again to take care of what you need to take care of without being forced to choose between your family, your bonding with your child, your own health, and your economic well-being. Because in Minnesota, you can do both. And we proved that time and time.
Isn't it crazy that if you're an American citizen, you don't get programs like this, but someone from a third world country can invade your country, defraud the system for millions of dollars a year already, and then get on top of it an extra 20 weeks of paid time off when they don't even work to begin with? Man, could you imagine what families would be able to do at 20 weeks of paid time off? I mean, the connection, the bond that parents would have with their children if they were able to spend half a year with those kids. I mean, employers don't even give benefits like that to their employees, but those same employees are the ones who are going to be footing the bill for the Somalian family that just moved here a week ago. That's crazy. Genuine question. Who is voting for this? Who is supporting this? What American taxpayer is going, I don't mind my tax dollars going to support someone who comes from a country where the only thing they're known for is piracy, where incest is running rampant, and, women are just second-class citizens. Let's bring as many over as possible.
So guys, this is absolutely mind-blowing. So I was watching the most recent video by Nick Shirley exposing these daycare centers. Now, they're going daycare to daycare, and the next one that they go to is called Sweet Angel Childcare. This is where they show up to. And this is the business right here. Sweet Angel Childcare in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Now, listen to where this phone number goes to when you call this child care center. Just wait for it.
Thank you for contacting the Office of Governor Tim Walz and Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan. Our office is located at 130 State Capitol at 75.
There's almost $9 billion of suspected fraud. Much of that is actually proven and there's been convictions. To have a governor in his second term that has allowed this to go on under his watch, under his administration for this long, taxpayers are fed up with this. They're frustrated. We've watched our state budget explode. We've watched all of our taxes and fees go up, and Minnesota taxpayers across the state are done with funding fraud here in the state. That's the frustration that we are hearing from across the state, and as you saw in the letter today.
Guys, you can't even make this up anymore. Governor Tim Walz was just called to resign by dozens of state Republicans in Minnesota. I mean, with the amount of fraud totaling over $12 billion now, there is no surprise that Governor Tim Walz should resign. There's no way he wasn't complicit in this amount of fraud. You can't tell me that a governor of a state would not knowingly have $12 billion worth of fraud from one community in the state. Not only that, but Tim Walz was the very guy who at the very beginning tried to fire the very people who actually discovered this fraud. He tried to fire the auditors in Minnesota government to try to fire them and try to cover this up. So there's no telling what this guy actually knows, and whether he took money, I don't know. I don't believe that, but he definitely tried covering it up, because remember, governors in Minnesota, governors all around the state depend on community votes. And in in Minnesota, the Somali community tends to vote together. They tend to vote as one big voter bloc. So you can't be enemies with the Somali communities, or else you're going to have 100,000 people voting against you. So for Governor Tim Walz to choose the Somali community over all of the people of Minnesota, that is deeply concerning. But he kind of had to do that. It was a political move. And this political move did not pay off right for him. And now he must resign. Now he must take the consequences of choosing the Somalis over the American people.
Last hour, Garrett just mentioned a group of Minnesota GOP state legislators called for the governor to resign.
Why has no agency official been fired or publicly disciplined for these failures? Those are just some of the questions that we've been asking for years, and the governor needs to answer.
Joining me now, Minnesota State Representative Kristen Robbins. State Representative, thanks so much for joining the program. I mean, you know, it's one thing to call on him to resign. He's clearly not going to do that. But if he doesn't, shouldn't you guys just impeach him just based on not just the fraud and corruption here, but going after those whistleblowers who sounded the alarm?
Absolutely. I called for the governor to resign several weeks ago. I just think his dereliction of duty is unconscionable. These whistleblowers have been sounding the alarm for years. We've had hearings for almost a year now, holding his agencies accountable. He's not fired anyone. He's not taken steps to stop the fraud on the front end, and he continues to make excuses. So I would absolutely want him to resign, as I said weeks ago, or I know others are looking at articles of impeachment, but he is responsible. He has turned a blind eye for 7 years, and we need to clean house in the executive branch.
You know, it's interesting. He's made quite a few maneuvers that are questionable, I would say, over these last years, now appointing, I should say, a fraud czar, but he closed at the statewide level an office that investigated fraud for many years. There are questions about that. This has only renewed the call for Governor Tim Walz to resign. He is currently running for a third term as governor, but this has really ramped up under his watch the last 7 years, all of this fraud exploding onto the national scene. I think it's 5 or 6 federal investigations that have now been announced in Minnesota from SNAP, our welfare fraud. The state doesn't want to give that over. Our voter rolls, Minnesota doesn't want to hand that over to the feds. Illegal immigrants having commercial driver's licenses here. In fact, President Trump saying that Walz has turned Minnesota into a fraudulent hub of money laundering activity. Those are the president's words.
So
All right, y'all. Yeah, the Somalians have managed to commit the biggest fraud in American history. I don't think anybody in our community ever scammed $9 billion out of the US government. We wouldn't have been able to get $9. Forget about $9 billion. We wouldn't have, if they would have gave us $9 too much, they would have had a meltdown over that. So, yeah, I mean, look, that is the one thing we've been complaining about all this time. You know, how they are very giving towards these immigrants that they don't even know. They're not vetted. You don't know what kind of people these are. Just like up in New York. Oh, give them debit cards and give them all this money and give them a free hotel room. Oh, give them an apartment. We'll cover the rent. I mean, they couldn't throw enough at these people. And we were like, you don't even do that for your own citizens. But this is what they do. And remember, they kept arresting them. And the very next day, they were back on the street. No matter what crime they committed, they were out back on the streets. I mean, it was just unbelievable. So I think he should step down, and I think he should be jailed. No, just don't just let him resign. Put his ass behind bars, because he let this whole thing happen. It's his fault. This happened on his watch. I don't feel bad for Tim Walz. Lock his ass up. And let it be a lesson for all these governors across the country that are going above and beyond to make sure you get money in the hands of these foreigners and you won't do nothing for the citizens within your state. I hope all of you get brought down, just like Tim Walz. So, y'all, we're going to get more into the investigation part of it, and that will be coming up at 1:45, where, it gets deep. You'll see how deep it gets. When they go to these daycare centers, there's no children, there's no one there, but they're collecting millions and millions of dollars annually. And you would think that there would have been a red flag long before $9 billion was sent out to all these people. Boy, somebody definitely didn't do their job. That's all I got to say. So, y'all, I'm going to go ahead and conclude. I want to thank Nanya Business 1115. Imagine the impact this scandal would help if this dude had become vice president. They will be looking to impeach him, and and Kamala. Yeah, you know what? They didn't win, and I know why they did not win. And even if Trump did cheat, they were going to let Trump back in there, y'all. Kamala and Tim Walz had no chance at all. They weren't getting in there. But thank you for your support for my channel. I deeply appreciate the super chat. So, y'all, I will see you at 1:45 so you can see the investigation into these Somalians and these fraudulent daycare centers. We'll get heavily into that. So have a wonderful, wonderful afternoon, and I'll see you at 1:45. And ladies and gentlemen, make sure you share these live streams and also take advantage of the 15% off discount that never expires. So whenever you go over to my Etsy shop, just at checkout, put in the promo code thank you 15 to get your 15% off discount. Yay. Shalom, family.